Hey there guys, it's Metro, and 4 days ago, Lore posted a blue thread on Mythic Plus Keystone changes coming in 7.2.5 to the PTR. And since then, when I was streaming and on videos as well, I've had probably close to 17,000 different human beings ask me what I think about these changes, and many of them were very upset. So I'd like to just give my opinions on this. Typically, I wouldn't make a video like this, but I feel like a lot of people are missing the point of the change, and we'll talk about why I think it's actually a great idea overall. The whole thing is actually a good idea, but why it's not perfect and ways that they could make it perfect. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've read this. If you haven't, it's in the description, a link to it, that is, but I'll go over some of the more important parts of it regardless. Okay, so the main things, essentially there's two changes that we really need to talk about. People say there's others. It's just an extrapolation of the two. Okay, the first thing is that the depletion mechanic is being removed, and instead when you complete the run on time, you'll have the same results in 7.2, so that's one outcome. If you complete the dungeon but don't make the timer, you'll get a keystone for a random dungeon that's one level lower than the one you just used. So instead of depleting it, you actually get a new viable keystone, so that's great. And if you don't complete the dungeon at all, you'll have a keystone for the same dungeon, one level lower than the one you just used. So for, like, you know, groups that literally can't beat a boss, they wipe for hours on one boss and they just break up. So this is great for people who, you know, get constantly paired with leavers. As you've seen on the stream, it's infuriating how many people actually leave 5-mans. To me, I can't express how frustrating it is, as you can tell. But anyway, that's a good thing. Very good thing. I don't think anybody would argue that's a good thing. Hopefully nobody would say that depletion mechanic needs to be removed. They talked then about the other thing we're looking to change is the way that rewards are given at the end of the runs. Basically, they're saying that they were originally incentivizing 3 chest runs because they were worried that keys were not going to be very common and that you would be missing out on gear. Like, for example, when I first started doing Mythic Pluses, I was like, yo, I don't want a 3 chest, dude. Let's do, fuck it, like, just wait and get 1 chest, and then we could do the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, you know. But I didn't realize that, you know, you just get the loot from the 3 chests. I didn't realize it worked that way. So it was a good idea at the start, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about why it's no longer a good idea and why it was changed in the first place, the way the loot model and incentivization changed in the first place. So in the beginning of the beta, the chests had 100% loot. So every time you got a chest, you got 1 piece of gear, always. Okay, and that was great if you ask me. I think that was a very good way to handle it in a vacuum. When you have 5 people in a group and somebody gets no gear, it's kind of shitty, and that's one of my least favorite things about Mythic Plus right now. But I think they did it for the right reasons. They changed it so there's only 2 pieces in the whole chest, so 2 players out of 5 get loot from 1 chest, and then that kind of incentivizes 3 chesting, because then, you know, some people can get 2 pieces, or even if they're super lucky, I guess they can get 3. But so what they're trying to do here is trying to get people to trade it, because that's what people were doing on the beta. On the beta, people were going in, getting all 5 pieces of the chest and giving it to 1 person. I saw this happen all the fucking time. People were like, come in and trade all your gear to 1 person, and they would bring all leatherwares and they'd gear up a rogue or something like that. And you can still do that to some degree, but the reason they were doing it was because it was actually easier to gear up for raids from 5-mans than it was to actually raid. And that was a big problem with Emerald Nightmare, because the raid was already pretty easy. There was no tier and, frankly, bad trinkets. Like, for the most part, the trinkets were better in 5-mans. So effectively, doing the best gear like, you know, getting the best gear from 5-mans was actually better than even raiding at the time. So they had to change it. It had to happen, and it was, you know, a mandatory part. But I don't really feel like it needs to be in the game anymore now at this point, because if you take a look at the Tomb of Sargeras gear, I mean, we're talking about all kinds of tier gear, all kinds of crazy trinkets, you know, even from Nighthold, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. So the raid gear is just better now, and it's better item level than what's available, right? So, you know, Mythic Plus right now yields 910 or 910, 890, I mean, and then 915 or 905 from the box at the end of the week from plus 10, where Nighthold yields, you know, up to 910 gear from Mythic, you know, Mythic Gul'dan and stuff. So it's just better. And even though it's, you know, it's better than, like, it's the same as heroic gear effectively, if you're able to constantly, you know, get gear from 5-mans, it keeps you doing them, right? It makes it interesting. And most of the gear is trash. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not very good, but there's some pieces in there, like some relics and some trinkets and some set bonuses and stuff like that, that are incredibly good to have. So I think, you know, you're setting the same precedent here. If we're going to go up to plus 15 and you're going to make it so there's only, you know, 2 pieces of gear, then they're still assuming that the raid gear is equal, if not worse. And they don't want people outgearing it, but from 5-man. So That's fine if you believe that. I don't believe that. I think one change that they could make is make it so there's 5 pieces of gear in the chest again. That's not going to happen, but I will explain to you how they could tweak what I'm about to talk about into perfection, okay? So regardless, the big change that they made here where everybody is really upset and confused about is that when you complete a 3 chest, you basically get nothing extra for it. 3 chesting, quote unquote, like 3 upgrades now are effectively just to increase your key. And they're trying to make it so you're not constantly running lower keys to try to get a lot more gear. So effectively, all you get now is a bonus from completing the dungeon at all in time. Doesn't matter how fast you do it. And I think this is the right play. So a lot of people are like super fucking pissed about this for what I just don't understand it. I mean, if you're doing dungeons only for gear, then you're playing the game for the wrong reasons, man. You should be playing them because you want to challenge yourself and you want to have fun. But a lot of people don't do that. And honestly, I don't know what this does to artifact power, but if it doesn't change artifact power, then you really shouldn't be doing low keys anyway. You know what I mean? Like if you're geared enough to be easily knocking these dungeons over, you should be looking for higher keys anyway, for more artifact power. So that's been what I've been doing. I only do low keys when I'm looking to like learn a character, you know. Otherwise, I have absolutely no interest in anything under 10 right now. And this is going to make that even more so. Now, there's a whole slew of, you know, problems with carrying and the social economics of getting keys and people pugging and boosting and all this stuff. So that's something that's beyond the scope of this video, unfortunately. But all you need to know is that you will now get more gear than you did previously if you 1 chest stuff. So what that tells you, right? So you get less gear if you 3 chest and more gear if you 1 chest. Right? So side-by-side comparison, you actually get more gear from doing higher keystones. So what that's telling me is they want us doing the highest keystones we can. And yes, they're not actually incentivizing it greatly. It's not like they're basically nerfing something else to try to get you into new content. That's not the right approach. And that's why I always say that this is not going to go live. But assuming it does, I think this is a great idea, because what this means is more people will be looking to do 15s and they won't be as like retarded about it. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a lot more people. First of all, keys won't be getting depleted. So if you fail, you'll still have keys and you'll still be able to keep pushing it. And that's the biggest problem right now. There's not a lot of 15s out there that people are trying to pug because they don't have them. People who are pugging don't have them. And the groups that are running coordination, like they have like a coordinated guild group, they don't want to pug. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to get higher keys on the market, a lot more. And that's a very good thing. Even if it's by nerfing other stuff. It's an unfortunate side effect, but it is going to do this, okay? Whether or not it gets more pugs, you know, like more lower level people into these higher keys, I can't say. That's like a social, you know, that's part of the social economics of Keystone. So I can't say about that right now. But what I can say is it will be better to be running the highest key you can. But problem here is there's a freaking pretty intense ceiling that I'm already hitting my head on. A 15 right now is not hard. It's really not. And it's not going to get any harder, I don't believe. So in 7.2.5, we're going to be getting Tomb of Sargeras, a bunch of class changes as well, and also a higher cap now to 15, where 15 will probably drop 910 gear or something like that, maybe 915, and it'll Titan Forge 15 item levels higher than that in your weekly box. So everybody will want to do a 15, but a lot of people are doing well above that now, easily, without any trepidation, even on characters that are not raid, you know, like not proficient in raids. So what they need to do here, okay, so I think is a great idea on paper, but what they need to do is they need to incentivize keys upward forever, and they're never going to do that. But what they need to do, if you listen at all from this type of discussion, is that they need to make the more you do above 15 reward more and more option, okay? So the way I've said it already, you know, the gear is terrible if you ask me. Getting 2 pieces or even 3 pieces of 915 gear or whatever it's going to be, let's just stick with the 10 now. Getting 3 pieces of 890 gear is basically useless. My alts are already higher item level than that, and I've been playing them for less than 2 days at 110, okay? They're already not needing this gear, but I continue to do 5-mans because I love to do them, okay? That's why I do them. But if you're somebody who's only after gear, 5-mans are already useless. You don't need the gear from the 5-mans, you know? Not in the current climate of the game, you do not. Raid gear is objectively better, and it takes way less time to get the piece you want from raid than it does from 5-mans, because there's so much RNG in 5-mans. Who gets the piece, which piece it is, you can't even target the piece, you can't coin the piece, all that, you know? So it's way easier to get raid gear. So I think what they should be doing is giving more and more gear out from 5-mans. Every time you complete, say, a 16, you get, like, if it was me, I would say you automatically get 5 pieces. The whole group gets 1 piece. And then maybe even, you know, 16, you get an extra piece or something like that. But regardless, I think that's the change. I think if you're going to make this work as is, which I don't believe will happen. I do not believe this will go live based on the feedback they've gotten. Even though I believe almost all of the feedback is people basically like, oh, you nerfed what I like to do. Fuck this game. It's like, dude, it doesn't work the way it is, man. Nobody should be wanting to do +6s over and, you know what I mean? It's just not fun. I don't find it fun. I don't know why anybody does. They're only doing it for chances of Titan forging, and that's stupid. So I think they should be incentivizing higher keys as hard as possible. That's what dungeons should be all about, and that's going to happen one way or the other in 7.2.5 if they make this change. But regardless, if they want to make it really work as well as the system does now in terms of gear allocation, then they not only need to incentivize it by nerfing the previous iteration, but by buffing the current iteration. And that means making +15s and higher drop even more gear. Not better item level gear, but more gear frequently. So if you're doing a 20, you're getting objectively more gear than if you're doing a 15, regardless of RNG, right? Because that's the thing that sucks right now, especially if you're pugging. People don't trade gear, you know, myself included. So effectively, if I don't get a piece in the box, I'm not going to get gear. And it helps people out in a way that, you know, obviously a guild group could trade all the gear to one player, but like I said, that gear is really bad right now, and I don't believe it's going to be any different. Like, the thing that they're trying to mitigate is people over-gearing the raid too quickly, which I can understand is a problem for the first, like, month, right? But once Tomb of Sargeras is out and people are, like, well into Mythic, the gear they're getting from there is just way better than 5-man gear, unless it Titan forges, and that has an equal chance in both raid and 5-man, so there's no reason to compare that. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the whole topic. A lot of people seemed really confused on it when they were asking me in the stream, so I figured I'd make a small video on this. I'd love to hear your guys' chance to, you know, like, explain yourself a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what they could do. Frankly, like I said one more time, I do not think this is going to go live like this. I've said this a dozen times already this weekend, but if it does go live, I think it's actually a really smart change. It's getting people away from really lazy gameplay. But the problem is they're not actually incentivizing anything. They've just nerfed something, and that's not fun for anyone. No matter what, it's not the right approach. So hopefully they'll consider either adding more gear to the ceiling. Like I said, 15 is a hard ceiling right now, and yeah, it's difficult to care about it, honestly. Like, when Tomb of Sargeras comes out, 15 is already easy, so there's almost no reason to care. But regardless, we'll see what happens. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.